I just want to know the story of your brother. What was the situation at hand? What was going on at the time?
It's so hard because it almost was like you couldn't believe that it happened. He was my best friend. He was everybody's best friend. He was so loving and kind, and it was, we didn't know what he was going through, and I think that was like the biggest thing that was hard. This is such a hard topic to talk about. He was it just like happened, and we were left with all these questions like, what could I have done? Was there something that I could have done? What were the signs? Like, you know, he was a teenager, and, you know, people get angry sometimes, and you don't know. Everybody's different. Thank you. Everybody's different. It's not everybody's just, you know, standing on a bridge. Sometimes they do it when nobody's there. And the hardest thing now is that I have to see my mother hurt every single day, and she questions, you know, what she could have done differently. What could I have done? How come I didn't know? How come I didn't know my baby was hurting? And it's really hard. It's a really hard thing to kind of get all the information out and say things. But the last thing that happened was he was texting his girlfriend, and she said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No." And then nobody heard from him after that.
Gosh, I'm so sorry, Kristina.
Thank you.
Were there signs at the time that signified that he was not doing okay?
No, he was always happy. We used to talk about, I mean, that's why it was such a shock, because we would talk about how he was going to live with me, and we were going to live in my mom's house, or he was going to live into my house, and he would talk to my son, and they were best friends, and they would just, I guess, talk about their future together. And he had a girlfriend at the time. He was trying to get a job. And he didn't open up to anybody. So that's why it was so, you hear about it, people going through it, but it's almost like, no, that doesn't happen to me. And then it does. And that's like the hardest thing, is not knowing that somebody was going through that. Like, he was my best friend and I didn't even know.
Could you have stopped it? Do you feel like you could have stopped it?
I go back to that day a lot. And I remember I was driving. I got out of school early and I was like, I'm going to go to my mom's house. I always go to my mom's. And then I chose not to. I chose to go to my friend's house instead. And sometimes I relive that and I think, well, maybe if I would have went, I could have stopped him. And those thoughts can eat you up.
Do they still eat you up?
Yeah.
Still think about this. Do you blame yourself for this?
I don't know if there's regrets. There's a lot of regrets. There's the regret of, how come I didn't know? What could I have done? Was there any signs? You know, I've lashed out in anger at times. You know, I think to myself, why didn't his girlfriend reach out to us? Why didn't she tell us that he said he wasn't okay? Could somebody have went and talked to him? I think about how I know what it's like to feel like you want to end it all. You want to end it all, and because there is no hope. That it seems like it's the only way out. And I got to experience that. That's a lie. There is hope. There is better, and it breaks my heart that he didn't get to like see that. He didn't get to break past that and realize that there is more.
Is there someone or something at fault for this? Is there someone or something to blame for this when something like this takes place?
No one to blame. No one. How old was your brother?
He was a month before he was going to turn 19.
So with teenagers, a lot of times they only see 5, 6, 7 years in the future. I do a lot of studying, a lot of research, and my own boy, who was 14 at the time, a few years ago, he's 18 now, at 14 at the time, he was actively suicidal and a cutter. So that's a whole different thing that goes on. But having gone through this, having lost a grandparent to suicide, you see a lot of different things from folks. And when I get the opportunity to talk to someone such as yourself and they will talk with me, I absolutely will find out more information. But the things that I had gathered is there is no one to blame. Yes, we're going to blame ourselves, and it's always going to be there. You're going to go through this grief process, and it happened 2 years ago?
It's going on 3 years.
So this is still relatively new. And you're going to go through this denial, anger, depression, get all the way around through acceptance. Not that your life will ever be the same, but at least you'll be able to accept what had happened. No one's to blame. And I ran into a couple back east that had lost their 14-year-old daughter to suicide. And what I found astounding with them, I said, well, are you in a support group for suicide loss survivors? Which is something you could look at if you're not doing that. And they said, no, we're not ready to share with that and listen to others yet, which was really neat for them to say that. But they said the first thing we did, one of the first things we did was we promised ourselves we're not going to blame each other. And that's very difficult, and themselves, to do.